Sometimes we have to love people more than they hate themselves. And that doesn't mean you put yourself in a position and you just accept abuse. I ain't saying that. I'm just talking about love in the form of understanding, because that's one way that we describe love in the 5%. We say that love is the highest degree of understanding, right? So when you look at the letter L in our alphabet, which is the 12th letter, 12 is 1 and 2, that's knowledge and wisdom. One way that we describe love is we say that love is the highest degree of knowledge and wisdom. Or if you're looking at it in the form of a family, that understanding being a child, that is the highest expression of the mother and the father or the family, because that child represents evidence of a future. That child is evidence of sustainability, right? And a legacy. So we're looking at it in terms of the letter 12 in our alphabet. When you look at the supreme alphabet, you see that it says love, hell, or right. And what that is a procedure, but it's also a principle of life, meaning whatever you love, or the love that you express for a person, or even the love that you express for yourself, you always go through a process of temperance to verify and validate whether it is real or whether it is right. It has to be tested, right? So that temperance, or that hell in that alphabet, is symbolic to fire, right? So fire is not necessarily negative. Fire can be something that tempers someone. It also can be used to remove impurities. You use fire to temper swords, you use fire to remove impurities for gold and other different precious metals. But at the same time, fire can torment, right? So it's the way that you actually learn from the experience or the process that you go through to vet or to see how real or how right that love actually is. Sometimes people stay in that process of hell and are constantly being tempered or tormented, and they never eventually come out right and see it for what it is, right? But it's the exact same thing that we consistently go through, not only internally, but when we're developing relationships with our family members in our community, meaning you're going to go through that process when you are being a resource to other people, because, gaining knowledge of self and learning the things that we're discussing, it makes you a beacon of light within your family and within your community. And because of that, people come to you. People already come to you on some level. But what happens is the more you learn, you amplify your ability to be a resource to other people. Why? Because the more knowledge that you gain, the more access you have to wisdom, which also means there's more of a possibility for you to gain and to share understanding and to be understanding, right? And that's important to understand, because dealing with people each and every day, we necessarily don't know what their journey is and what they go through, or why they may have an attitude, or why they may be going through this or why they may be going through that. And we can't run the risk of judging the exterior without necessarily knowing their story, right? So I'm saying all that to say, when you look at the 1 to 36, the English C lesson number 1, 136 or 136, knowledge to understand equality, is exactly what this lesson teaches you about. It's knowledge to better understand equality, harmony, equity, balance, homeostasis, fairness. Because when you look at those lessons, they're very short, because it represents a conversation between W.D. Farad, which is one of the co-founders of the Nation of Islam and one of the co-creators of the Supreme Wisdom book, where we get our 120 lessons from. It's a conversation between him and one of his students, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And in this conversation, they're talking about some of the transgenerational trauma, or the social backdrop, or the context of how some of our people have grown up here in the wilderness of North America, which is very important, because sometimes you hear people saying stuff online or just dealing with our people, and you can see that they really don't have a context of why a person is the way that they are. One of the things I was talking to one of my students about is when you look at a person that, and I asked them, have you ever seen a person that's addicted to drugs? And they were like, yeah, yeah. And I said, do you think when they were a child, they said, oh man, I can't wait till I get older so I could be addicted to drugs? And they said, no. And I said, exactly. You know, there's a series of events that happens in a person's life where they make certain decisions or they find themselves in certain situations that leads them to spaces like this. And I said, even if it's a scenario where a person may be introduced to a certain type of drug or substance, there was still a series of events that put them in that space to even be introduced, right? All of this didn't happen in a vacuum. Nothing happened by chance, and it's not happenstance. And it's important to understand that these are processes in life that take place. And oftentimes, there are traumas that a person goes through that makes them susceptible to being in certain spaces and to make certain type of decisions, right? So before we go into some of the different elements of the 1 to 36, I wanted to